Morning. So today, I've only got a few days. I've only got about 7 days left before we head down to the beach. I got a bunch of videos coming that we're going to do down there on zoysia grass, on drainage issues, a few different things. So hit that subscribe button, number one. Number two, of course, I always link to products I'm talking about in the description below. But I wanted to talk about particle size today in setter spreadings real quick. I get a lot of questions about this, but we deal with a lot of professional grade products, which are very, very small particle size. So I figured I'd address that just a little bit, give you a couple tips, and then just record what I'm doing. Today, we did a core aeration and a scalp, which opens up the lawn and opens up the soil. So what I wanted to do is come out here and put a light treatment of the double kill, which kills top and below surface, just to check and see if I had any issues. I'll do that real quick. I'm going to show you the green shocker testing strips. I'll talk a little bit about green shocker, what we're doing there. And again, this, if you have a warm season grass, you should be using one of the PGF completes right now. So it's either PGF complete 1648 for most lawns, 1608 if you have high phosphorus, and PGF balanced if you have a low phosphorus issue. So anyways, that's what I'm going to do today. Watch it if you want. If you don't, Netflix is on. Go switch over to Netflix. So I'm going to give you two examples of products. We use a lot of professional grade products that have very small particle size. So let me give you a couple examples. Number one, let's look at the double kill. So this is the double kill that I'm putting out, and you can see the particle size is very, very small, intentionally so, for better coverage. Another example is here is the green shocker. Now the green shocker, if you can even see the particles, I mean, some of these particles are the size of salt. They are just absolutely tiny. So you've got tiny particles, they're all dark colored, and it's very hard to see them. I actually got on the phone with Anderson's and said, is there a way to possibly colorize this? And they said, no. There's so much humic acid inside of this stuff that there's just no way to colorize it enough. So what you need to do is, if you're going to be using something like the double kill or the green shocker product, I really recommend using this dew method so that you can really watch your tracks and get a good even coverage. So see what I mean? Now the lawn is recovering nicely, as you can tell. So this is after the scalp. This is like a week later. But I wanted to put out double kill so you can see my patterns. I don't have to worry about seeing the product I'm throwing because I know my distribution paths are perfect. Plus, the DG particles are now on there breaking down for about 10 minutes before I run my irrigation. So one of the next questions I get is about spreader settings. I'll tell you this very much up front, is that I do not look at spreader settings on a bag. In other words, what's the number? And one of the reasons is that those numbers are never consistent. You can put together a spreader one way and your numbers will be way off. So how do I determine my spreader size? Well, go to your largest common denominator is basically how I look at it. So as an example, if you have a product that has multiple particle sizes. So as an example, PGF complete is fairly consistent, but one thing that you'll notice is that there are particle differences in sizes. Same thing with something like Humichar. Humichar has varying particle sizes. So you'll see some really small ones, and then you'll have some mediums, and you have a couple larger ones. So how do you determine that? So what I do is I actually take a product and I look at it and I find the largest particle. So I have just pulled the largest particle. I have just pulled the largest particle out of there, which is that white one there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my spreader. Initially, I'm going to set my spreader size at just above that largest particle size. Why is that? If you set your spreader setting smaller than your larger particle, as those particles start to fall, it's sort of like a screening where the large particles, if there are any large particles in there, they won't be able to get through and they'll actually start to block the holes that are down there. Does that concept make sense? So if I have my hole set to where a couple larger particles can't fall through that, I'm going to have those particles collect down at the bottom on top of those holes, and it's going to reduce my general output. So when I'm putting down a product that I'm unsure about, I look at the largest particle size, and I'll go about a 1/16 of an inch larger than that. And then what I'll do is I'll measure it, and I'll say, okay, I know I need to put, I have 10,000 square feet, and I need to apply 3 pounds of this product. So I need to, 10 times 3 is 30 pounds. So I need to get 30 pounds out. So when I'm playing with these products, what I generally do is I do test runs, and I figure out, okay, so I know if my spreader setting is this wide, X amount is going to go down. So I really shy away from spreader settings and the numbers on spreaders. Use that largest common denominator, or largest particle size, as a good method to do it. So when you're using, if you ever use, when it finally comes out, if you use something like Green Shocker, that means, man, your openings are going to be about 1/8 of an inch when you initially put this out. And then a lot of times you'll see me put product in a gallon jug, and I'll weigh it. I do that with my growth regulator. I calculate how many pounds are in a gallon, and that allows me to get a real accurate dosage. So I know I need to put X amount of pounds on X amount of square feet. Over the years, I've done reviews on 9 different spreaders, I think it is. I think the nicest spreader I own is the Anderson's LCO 1000. It's a professional grade spreader. It's all stainless steel. But it's, you know, it's getting close to like $600, and I don't think the average homeowner is going to buy that. The other one I like is the Lawn Star by Anderson's, and the Lawn Star is the green one. I actually took it down to the beach house. It's smaller, it's compact, it's a nice spreader. This is one that I did a review on, and I actually did an assembly video on it, because the assembly is a pain in the butt. But if you watch my video, it's easy, but if you don't watch my video, it's hard. That one is my favorite spreader of all time. Reason being, it's not cheap. I think it's probably about 300 bucks. But it has the big pneumatic tires on it. It has a huge hopper. This thing can hold, there aren't many spreaders that can hold 1.5 bags of Humichar, which is a huge bag. That thing can hold like 1.25, 1.5 pounds of Humichar. So it's a huge hopper. You don't have to keep refilling it. But this thing is light. It's super, super light. It does have a side control on it, so you can flip over and just have it disperse off one side. It has some nice features like that, but the weight of it, a lot of times, you can see, a lot of times I hang my spreaders in my shed, and there are a couple of spreaders I don't want to go up there and reach because I'm going to get a kink in my neck. This thing is light enough that I actually like it. So if you want a good spreader, you want to bump up to more of a professional grade spreader, this is the one that I recommend. Again, I always link to it in the description below. Great spreader, great spreader. Let me give you another tip. The majority of these spreaders have some kind of control like this, where they have a wing nut, and as you open and close, it stops it. Well, this stop has a tendency, if you get too hard or it's not tight enough, that stop, as you pull your handle up, may move. That happens to me all the time. So I actually went and got a secondary wing nut system, and I use this as a safety catch. So I have 2 of them on there. So I set this where I want, and then I move that and then lock it down double. So that's a good tip. The other thing I do is, after I'm done, I rinse it with a hose, and then I leave it in the sun, and I let the sun heat it up and get all that water dry out of there before I put it away. If you'll rinse off your spreaders, clean them off, and then set them in the sun, let them dry off, they'll last a lot longer. How far spreaders throw, there's 2 things you want to keep in mind. Number 1, how fast you're walking, and the actual weight or kinetic energy of actual granules. I never thought I'd be standing in the rain talking about kinetic energy. So, kinetic energy. Basically, all particles have a stored energy once they start moving, and that's based on the particle speed, and that's based on the particle mass. That's basically what we do. So if you throw something, if you can get something that's heavier up to a higher speed, it's going to keep going farther than something that's light. An example, if you take a baseball and throw it at the same speed as throwing a feather and throwing it, you can tell which one's going to go farther. The same things with particles, and I stressed this to my son, and he finally grasped this concept that If something basically has a lower mass to it, a lower weight to it, and you're going at the same speed, it'll actually throw farther than something that's light. So as an example with Dirt Booster. Dirt Booster is very light and it's kind of flat particles, so it only throws, you know, maybe 2 or 3 feet off to one side in our spreaders. Now you take something like PGF Complete, and that may throw 5, 6, 7 feet if you get your speed up. So the faster you walk and the heavier or more dense those particles are, the farther they're going to throw. So you do need to identify that and understand that. Now, I will tell you, I have a little strip that's about 5 feet wide over here, and I tell my son all the time, he says, should I turn on the side switch? And I said, no, just slow down your walk. Again, going back to that formula, if you slow down your walk on your, if you have a narrow area that's only 4 feet wide, slow down the pace of the spreader a little bit, you'll notice that the particles don't throw as far. It's based on the kinetic energy formula. So if you walk really fast and you get the speed up on those particles, they'll actually throw faster too. So you can use that on different areas and strips. But every single one of these products, any product that you use is going to have a different kinetic energy. So you're going to have a different throw pattern. So it's never the same with all your products. So Humichar will throw differently than PGF Complete. Green Shocker will throw differently than Dirt Booster. They're all going to throw a little bit differently. You just have to identify how far off on one side it's going. Then you can use this dew stripe, which is a really cool way to use those dew marks to understand what you're going to do. So let's talk about weather and how weather impacts some of when you're going to apply this. So I have this little trick that I use with DG particles. Number one, I like to come out and put them on a dew lawn. The DG particles start to break apart very quickly, and then you can turn on your irrigation and they go right into the ground. Number two, if you're putting something out before a rain event that's a DG particle, run your irrigation system after you apply it. Why is that? And that is, you're sort of loosening these, you're pre-wetting these particles and getting them down into your thatch layer. And before your soil gets saturated, important term, before you hit soil saturation points, the first thing that's going to go into the soil, if you're using a DG product especially, the first thing that's going to go into your soil is the first 1/4 inch of rain. And those products are going to be carried into the soil first. With clay soils, we have this problem. We have silt and we have silica. And what do those two things do? Well, as the soil gets more wet and more wet and more wet, those things actually start to saturate the soil. And if you get a real heavy rain, then you can get that runoff. So it's always good to put it on a dry soil, water it in right before a rain, and then let the rain come. I hope this video has answered some spreader questions for you. Don't forget, hit subscribe because I'm going to be taking you down the beach house. Drainage issues, soil issues, high pH or low pH, zoysia planting, a bunch of different videos. And I'm going to be leaving my mater garden. Did you watch the mater video? Go back on my channel and watch the mater video. I have a tomato cam. It's fun. Anyways, it's a rainy day, so no grass cutting today. It's going to rain all day today. But man, these tomato plants, they're just absolutely, man, that smell is just amazing on it. If you haven't watched the tomato gardening videos, you really need to watch them because it's shocking that we have not lost these tomato plants, and it is already in August. Every year by July, they're all gone. We have not lost any of them. And look at this, all growing down to the ground, no lower pruning. And last week we pulled a record 70 pounds of tomatoes out of this garden. 70 pounds. You gotta watch that video. Talk to you later. Doc.